Hey everybody, my name's Gary Ugaric, and I'm not like your typical YouTube commenter. I like a lot of reaction videos. I listen to a lot of these guys, but not really a big comment-driven individual in most cases. When I want to open my mouth, I will. But I wanted to take this moment to talk about the release of the new trailer for Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead. Now, anybody who knows me uh, knows I'm a huge zombie fan. Now, some of you watching this probably like, who the fuck is this guy? Well, Google me and you'll find out, and we'll leave it at that. However, as far as Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead, I enjoyed the first trailer very much, especially his use of Lucky Day by Judy Garland in the original teaser trailer. That was friggin' brilliant. Then to have Kenny Rogers, the gambler, being used in the full-length trailer that just dropped today on April 13th was like, okay, I have noticed this for years that Zack Snyder loves placement of music in trailers, movies, etc., etc. And I think that's one of the most brilliant things about him. Not to mention that he's already established his chops in the zombie genre with the remake of Dawn of the Dead, and I know that's a whole discussion we're going to get into in a minute. So I'm going to try keep this video as short as possible, but no guarantees because I like to run my mouth like everybody else. So, obviously Zack Snyder broke onto the film scene in 2003 when he started shooting the Dawn of the Dead remake in Toronto, Canada. That's where I met Zack Snyder. I was running a website at the time called wetandwildradio.com, and I was trying to get some insight on the Dawn of the Dead remake because I'm still a huge Dawn of the Dead fan. All right, cat, knock it off. Damn cat, sorry. Anyways, I made it a mission to get a hold of Universal, get my ass up to Toronto, and somehow meet Zack Snyder. So that all happened probably around their sixth or seventh week of production. And I got a tour of the set. Amazing. Not what I expected for a mall, because obviously the Monroeville Mall lives in Dawn of the Dead zombie lore. So, but it was still interesting because obviously the remake was not set in Pittsburgh like the original. So now going into beating Zack Snyder, I had a load of questions because I had read James Gunn's original script. Not the script they shot for Dawn of the Dead remake, but just the script that pretty much put the production in motion. And a lot of us fans were like, oh my God, there's a zombie baby that gets up right after it's born and starts eating its father and blah, 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 blah. So, of course, we're freaking the fuck out. When I get up there, I sit and have a talk with him. I said, what's the story of the zombie baby getting up? And he says, all right. He says, think about that. And I said, well, I have thought about it. I said, it seemed very trauma-esque. And since James Gunn has a background in trauma, that didn't surprise me it would turn up in his version of Dawn of the Dead. But at the same time, I wouldn't think that a studio like Universal or a production company, especially with Richard Rubenstein, the owner of the rights to Dawn of the Dead, and being involved, that was ever going to fly. And he goes, well, you get it then. And I said, okay. Zach, very cordial, awesome cat. I had a lot of respect for him. I got invited to the world premiere, had a good time, got to party with the cast and crew the night of the world premiere at the Beverly Center Mall. It was a great experience. And then I hadn't seen Zach in a while. Communicated with him still through email when I could. But it was Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead remake that led me to do some other things with Universal regarding George Romero's Land of the Dead. And then I started my own indie film career when I was living in the Baltimore, D.C. area. And I don't really have... what's the word I'm looking for? The words to describe that experience, because remember, Zach was pretty much just a commercial director who was given a chance to direct one of the biggest horror properties ever in a remake. And then I saw the film. I mean, at first viewing, I wasn't sold on it. There was some continuity problems I had with, how the first zombie was created, and da-da-da-da, especially because they said that no matter how you die, unless it's a bite, you're not coming back. Well, okay, what the fuck? How do you get the first zombie? So Zach and I had that discussion the morning after a private screening at Universal. We were sitting in the hotel lobby, and I was just like, well, I said, I think you're going to have a hard time selling that with the zombie fans, but whatever. So years go by, out comes 300. 300's just, wow, visually stunning. Zach is a very visual director, and that is one of the great things you can love or hate about him. The dude's visual, and you could hate his movies, but you cannot say that his films are not beautifully shot. Then came, some of the other stuff he had done, such as Sucker Punch and the Owl movie, and, Man of Steel came along, and I loved Man of Steel. Most people didn't like it. Batman v Superman definitely wasn't what I was expecting, but then again, this is Zack Snyder, so I was still absorbing him, so to speak. And then, of course, we all know about the Justice League fiasco, and, but he finally got to do his cut, which I still haven't watched yet, so no spoilers, please. But now brings us to Army of the Dead. Now, for those of you that don't know the backstory, let me give it to you. Army of the Dead was drafted not long after the Dawn of the Dead remake had a huge opening. And a huge opening for a zombie film like Dawn of the Dead in 2004 was making its budget back in its opening weekend is great. Then the fact that it went on to make double, or in the US, but quadruple worldwide, not to mention it had very robust home video sales. Dawn of the Dead was all in out a success. So there was a script, as I understand it, drawn up for Army of the Dead, which would have been a quasi-direct sequel to Dawn of the Dead. Now, this is where I get fuzzy on the details. I knew the Las Vegas angle was in it, but I didn't see where the heist part was coming in, because I had this thing after seeing Land of the Dead that I thought, well, money's useless because the world's overrun by zombies and da-da-da. So then the more I looked into it, it turns out that Vegas is quarantined, but the rest of the world is fine. So those who have the currency angle stuck as a big drawback don't, because if you can get in and out of this quarantine zone overrun with smart zombies, vicious zombies, fast zombies, slow zombies, then you're sitting on easy street, because if the rest of the world is functioning, this movie is going to be a perfect setup for why you do the heist, because the rest of the world is free of the living dead. Now, the new trailer dropped today, which was great, and I'll get to there in a minute, but getting back to the story. So Army of the Dead kind of languished in development hell, and I mean for a while, so we're talking at least 12 to 14 years, because it originally was, I believe, shopped around Universal, who wanted to do something with the Dawn of the Dead property, extending it, but then Land of the Dead kind of flopped. It didn't do very well. It only made like $21 million, and then worldwide it only made 43. So it was like a break even. And that for a studio is kind of, okay, the first one makes money. The second one kind of, even though they're two different movie genre, two different movie properties, because one's a remake, another one's a continuation of Romero's universe. That's fine and dandy. That's, whatever. So studios get nervous. And that happened on Dawn of the Dead, because when House of the Dead flopped in its opening in 2003, they slashed the budget in half for the Dawn of the Dead remake. It was supposed to have like $40 million. And apparently the investors studio got nervous when House of the Dead flopped. And I'm like, and this is where I can get into a whole discussion about the studio and their way of thinking and finances, because they don't look at the overall product, which is, the final product of the movie itself, how it was cut, how it was shot, blah, blah, blah. They just look at the money terms. And that's a shame, because had they watched this movie before they made their rash decision to slash the budget for Dawn of the Dead, they could have saw that this movie was going to go right in the tubes. So, anyways, moving forward, Zack and Universal didn't reach an agreement. Zack goes to Warner Brothers because now he's established himself with 300. He's kind of the toast of the town at the moment. So he sets up a production company, I believe, called Cruel and Unusual Films. And this is, the start to Zack Snyder's legacy. And so Zack Snyder, he does what we talked about: Justice League, Batman v Superman, Sucker Punch, 300, the Owl movie, and I'm sure there's something else in there I'm missing, but I'm nearly 50 years old, so I don't keep track of this shit like I used to. But the one thing I noticed is when there was the falling out between Warner Brothers and Zack over Justice League, Zack has amassed a fan base, and that fan base, having known more of the backstory of what happened with Justice League, really started getting everybody fired up to release the Snyder Cut. Now, obviously, it took 4 years, but hey, these guys pulled off something that never happens. I mean, the only other time that I can remember it happening was with Snakes on a Plane, when they said it was going to be PG-13, and the internet went frickin' bonkers because they needed to hear Sam Jackson say, motherfucker in this movie. So the studio, said, okay, do it. And then Snakes on a Plane just didn't do very well. So you got to remember, this is a rabid fan base that pretty much made a studio cave to pressure. And in the end, from what I'm reading, Zack Snyder's Justice League, well, technically he's credited for both movies when you look at the director credit, but this is his cut, the director's cut. From what I'm reading, it's just freaking phenomenal, although I haven't seen it yet. So now getting into Army of the Dead. Because of that fallout, Zack and Warner Brothers kind of parted ways for a while, and Netflix was really interested in working with Zack Snyder. Now, again, I haven't talked to Zack in years, but we communicated via email, and if we ran into each other at a con, which we did in, I want to say, New Jersey at one point, we had a brief discussion because of my Dawn of the Dead Wet and Wild radio days. Anyways, I kind of imagine what happened is that Netflix called up Zack and said, we'd like to talk to you, Zack. And so he goes over, and they were like, we would really like to work with you. We recognize your talents. What have you got for us? And Zack Snyder, and I can't imitate his voice, which is, I know by heart, if I hear it, I'd know it's Zack Snyder, but I imagine it went something like this. Well, I've got this zombie movie that's going to cost like $90 million, and it's about a heist in Vegas and super intelligent zombies and da-da-da. And Netflix just sat there going, take my money. And that was it, because other than World War Z, which cost a fortune because of the reshoots, if this movie really did get budgeted at $90 million and Netflix gave it up, that would make this the second most expensive zombie film ever made. Because World War Z was a $90 million budget, I think, and then it ballooned to $125, and then in the end with the reshoots it ended up costing close to $200 million. And they got lucky with that. It didn't make a lot of money, but it was profitable. So now I think what happened with Zack, because there was such backlash over the running zombies in the Dawn of the Dead remake, is I really think that when he sat down to write the screenplay for this movie, because remember, this has been going back and forth, so obviously you're going to tweak and change things over the years. I am willing to bet that he sat down, thought about all the backlash from the remake, thought about everything he might have run into at Comic-Cons or horror cons, or, just fan service in Twitter or Instagram or wherever he's hanging out, and the problems with running zombies, intelligent zombies, Then Sci-Fi was the first movie there with Ving Rhames. I can't remember the name of it, but I remember he was in it, that had a zombie tiger that I remember seeing. So I think what was ironic in watching this trailer is Zack said, you know what? Fuck what everybody says. I'm just going to throw the whole goddamn enchilada at everybody. We're going to have fast zombies. We're going to have slow zombies. We're going to have intelligent zombies. We're going to have dumb as fuck zombies. So he's covered everything from George Romero to Dan O'Bannon's Return of the Living Dead to the goofy sci-fi movie with the zombie tiger, and I'm going to get to that in a minute, you know, to Shaun of the Dead. I mean, it's all kind of, you know, wrapped in there. And it's even got a twist of Army of Darkness in that. And I saw that. I mean, it's not a huge reference, but it's there in the trailer. But what really made me realize and put it all together, what was great, is when the character says, and I'm paraphrasing, is when they said, "What is that?" And he goes, "That's a goddamn zombie tiger." And he says, "That just crosses a line." And that, I think, is Zack's way of saying, I get you guys are going to give me shit over this, but fuck you, I'm doing it anyways, and this is how I'm going to deal with it. And if you're smart enough, you're going to catch on, and if you're not, then, you know, it is what it is. But that was the moment that stuck out to me, that I was like, okay, he took zombies mating, he took running smart, blah, 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 everything, threw the zombie tiger in and just said, that's just wrong, because he knows the fans are going to have backlash about the different take, because there's kind of two camps in zombie film fans. There's the slow, shambling Romero, and then there's everything else. And if you're a zombie fan, you kind of dig everything else, but you do have an allegiance to the Romero stuff, because that's what got you started. And I just like that he did that. I caught that right off the bat, and I was just like, yes! If that's not a big, I don't give a fuck what you think. This is my movie, my script. I just want to make a action film about a heist in Las Vegas with zombies, right? Because there is no way this is a true, full-blown, scare-you-to-death horror film. This doesn't even serve in the same purpose. It probably shouldn't even be classified as a horror film. It should be classified as an action horror film, not a horror action film. Because there is just levels of absurdity that are going to be done in such a Zack Snyder way, you're not going to give a fuck. You're going to be like, you know what? And that which brings me to Zack Snyder's status as a whole. So I started feeling, once Man of Steel had been released, that Zack Snyder had transcended. And when I say transcended, is like he's gone from just being directed by Zack Snyder to being a director people know by name, people talk about. You know, he's like a David. He's in there in the groups with David Fincher, George Romero, Ridley Scott, John Carpenter. You know, he's up there. It's like when you see a trailer, if you don't know who directed it, if the trailer didn't tell you, like Army of the Dead does in both versions, you could tell that's a Zack Snyder trailer. Not just from the visuals, from the fucking music. And that's where Zack has transcended. And right now, he is this close to being really adding his name to the titles of the films. Like Justice League became Zack Snyder's Justice League because of the brouhaha behind it. But Army of the Dead could technically be titled Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead, like George Romero's Dawn of the Dead, George Romero's Land of the Dead, you know, or John Carpenter's Halloween, John Carpenter's Vampires. Zack has reached that fucking status. Now, again, whether you like his stuff or not, it's an acquired taste, you know, it's out there. You're going to either love or hate his stuff. And I have mixed reactions over everything. You got to respect the guy because, man, he has pulled off some crazy fucking shit. And like I said, having met him years ago, I thought the guy was just pleasant, awesome. In his interviews, he's just like he was when I met him in person. So definitely love Zack Snyder. I am a fan. And I really hope that the zombie fans that are going to pretty much tear this trailer apart keep things in mind. So, and I know the one thing I'm already seeing bitching about is why are they going after money? Well, apparently, nobody paid attention because obviously there's a regular world where Dave Bautista is a short order cook. And he is, working in a diner. Somebody shows up, offers him a chance to make $50 million. So again, going back to why do they throw currency in a movie? Currency doesn't work in a zombie universe where the entire world is taken over. However, it can. And this goes back to the original Dawn of the Dead. If you remember when the guys are in the mall and they've cleaned it up, they decided to go to the bank and clean out the drawers. And one of the things is they were holding up the money and smiling for the camera. Ken Foray, who played Peter, said, "You never know." And he was right, because you never know. Because, all right, zombies taking over, it's 10, 12 years of this plague, and then eventually the majority of the zombies are going to die off, and then you're just going to have to deal with the people who die and then turn afterwards. So now that they know the origins and what's causing it and the fact that you can't stop it from happening ever again, you could rebuild society based on the knowledge you've gained through a zombie apocalypse. Now, you're inventing a currency system for the apocalypse as it's happening. Barter, trade, whatever. But at some point when the world goes back to normal, you are going to need a currency. So why develop a new currency when there's plenty of paper currency just floating around out in the open? You could really... you could actually rebuild the economy off the existing paper money that is still around. And then as you rebuild things, you restore power, you restore basic, municipality functions. You're going to restore the economic government as a whole. That includes printing presses and things, because you're going to rebuild the populace, and it's going to take time. But the thing that makes the world revolve has always been money. So in this case, in Army of the Dead, the heist fits because it is a normal world outside of the Vegas quarantine. So that's pretty much it. Check out the Army of the Dead trailer. It is actually really great. I do a reaction video, but you know what? I didn't have time to do it. I just decided to plop my cell phone up, set it up, try to give myself a good shot, and go from there. You know what I mean? So I hope you enjoyed my little tidbit about Zack Snyder and zombie films. But I'm interested, if you leave a comment below, it'd be great to hear what you guys think, your opinions on my thoughts, and see where it goes from there. Sometimes an open discussion is really good to have. So anyways, thanks again, guys. Thank you for the 22, almost 23 minutes of your time, and have a great day.